Regardless of what you've seen on TV, soy is not a health food. It mimics estrogen in the human body, leads to early development in girls, estrogen-dependent cancers, thyroid problems, and more. So please, before you feed your infant soy formula, let's take a few minutes and learn something about soy. We're going to start off with a clip from Dr. Mercola and Mercola.com.
I'm here to tell you that it's my strong belief, after studying this very carefully, that unless you're having fermented soy, you're having a problem. And I'll tell you the reasons why. But the fermented soy would be foods like natto, miso, and tempeh. And this does not include tofu. Tofu is not fermented, so that definitely falls into the category of soy that you want to avoid. And why do you want to avoid it? Well, in contemporary society, one of the primary reasons is that somewhere between 90 and probably closer to 95% of the soy grown domestically is genetically modified soy. Government regulation against it is just that the consumers are aware enough that they refuse to purchase GMO food. So that's probably the primary issue. But even if you were fortunate enough to choose the 5% or so of soy that is organically grown, there's still concerns, and let me review those with you now. One is that there are goitrogens in soy, and goitrogens are inhibitors of thyroid functions. And a common source of soy is soy milk, and many people consume that as an alternative to milk or one of their primary beverages. And that really is a concern because you're able to get large amounts of this soy, and it's a significant contributor to thyroid dysfunction or hypothyroidism in women in this country. So if you're a woman and you're struggling with low thyroid function and you're consuming soy milk, the biggest clue is to stop drinking that immediately. Now, as long as we're talking about women, we can also talk about some of the estrogen components, which are typically the isoflavones that are in soy. And some actually recommend and use these therapeutically to treat menopausal type symptoms, but I believe the evidence is really controversial whether or not that really works, and even more importantly, it may cause some disturbance in endocrine function. So that is definitely a significant concern. The other component is that there's a phytic acid in there, and phytic acid is something that will inhibit and impair the absorption of minerals. Now, sometimes that's good, especially in postmenopausal women or in most adult men, because we tend to have levels of iron that are too high, which can be a very potent oxidant stress. But it doesn't necessarily selectively inhibit iron absorption. It inhibits all of the ones, the beneficial minerals like magnesium and calcium and copper and zinc, and all the important minerals that form as catalysts in very important enzyme functions. So this is something that we need to be aware of. As I mentioned, tofu is not a fermented soy, so that is one that should be avoided also. But some of the other ones that are really common would be soy protein, isolated soy protein powder that you find in many protein bars, many protein drinks, powder drinks that you would put together. And this is really not a naturally produced substance. It's really processed in a way that they have an acid wash. There's aluminum in there, and many times MSG is added. So these are things you want to avoid, especially MSG, because we know from fairly clear scientific documentation that it's an excitotoxin. It can actually lead to neurological damage. So you clearly want to avoid foods with MSG, and soy protein isolate is clearly one of them. So avoid that one for sure. But perhaps one of the most serious ones that you want to be really cautious about is the soy infant formula. And of course, what we absolutely recommend for every single woman who has a child is to breastfeed. There's just no questions. And interestingly, the conventional physicians, American Academy of Pediatrics, also recommend this and strongly recommend it for the first 6 months of life. I mean, the evidence is just absolutely beyond overwhelming. This is going to be the absolute best thing, the type of nutrition or approach of feeding possible for the infant. Unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, many of them may be economic or convenience, or just inability, many women choose not to breastfeed their child, so then they're left with options, which typically are conventional formula. And because of the problems with conventional formula, many children are allergic to it, and they choose soy as an option that they can tolerate. And unfortunately, the soy is far worse than conventional formula, which is not even really good at all. So the reasons why is typically soy formula is very high in these phytoestrogen components, and they can have levels that are 20,000 times higher than birth control pills that reach in the child's blood after consuming these for a long time. But they're also very high in some toxic minerals such as aluminum and manganese at very high concentrations. So clearly, if you have a child, or you know one of your friends or neighbors who is in this predicament, and just tell them to avoid the soy formula. There's more information on my site, but it's clearly a formula that should, I believe, be banned and barred from commercial sale, and should be illegal to sell in the United States. So what are you going to do if you're unable to breastfeed? Well, we actually have on our site the infant formula fortification protocols that you can look up and just type in the search engine, and it will give you the specific details on how to use regular raw milk combined with other nutrients such as some of the essential fatty acids and some other components to actually provide a source of nutrition that will cause your child to thrive and really avoid many of the conventional illnesses that we're exposed to because they're receiving up.
If you ever smell ground up soy, you would throw up.
From endalldisease.com.
One of the greatest tragedies of the 20th century is the introduction of soybeans as food. They're not food. They're not fit for animals, much less humans.
Soy is one of the biggest food fallacy that humans encounter.
Soy has been promoted, has been marketed to be a nutritional star. We hear so much about it. It's taken about 50 years to convince the American public that soy should be eaten.
Research on soy is done by soybean manufacturers. So yes, we see a lot of positive that it have anti-cancerous and anti-death, but what they don't show is the disturbing evidence that soy actually can cause cancer among women who are prone to suffer from cancer, that soy can cause retardation of growth among infants.
Also, the major grower and distributor of soy tried to get the government to give it a GRAS labeling, generally recognized as safe, but when all the literature and science was presented, that request was denied.
Soy is the biggest con job in the world. In 1990, they said, we've got all this soy, we feed it to the pigs, and it is food for a pig. It's fine for them. We want to get it into the nutrition and health market. How do we do it? So, of course, you pick women, because women care about our health much more than guys do. Guys really don't care. Women do care. They put it in the regular aisle area, not refrigerated. The women didn't buy it. So they got the great idea, hey, we need to refrigerate this junk to make it seem like it's milk, soy milk, right? Soy needs no refrigeration. And I hope everybody listening will start to understand the con job you're getting.
This sounds crazy to people because they've been sold over the past 30, 40 years on soy being a substitute for animal protein.
The first problem with soy is that the majority of the soy is genetically modified. I would say probably 70% of the soy is genetically modified. Genetically modified means that it's been manipulated. The DNA has been manipulated in the soy to either resist insects, to grow bigger soybeans. There are a lot of different techniques when you talk about genetic engineering.
More and more research is coming out showing that GMO foods have serious debilitating effects to our health. So you do not want to be eating GMO foods.
It also has trypsin inhibitors that cause protein digestion to actually be interfered with. So these people that are actually taking soy as a protein replacement, it's making most of it you can't absorb.
Soy flour is in just about every kind of bread you buy.
That's right.
You have soy milk, you have soy nuts, you have, just soy oils, just proliferated. But the fact of the matter is soy is a very dangerous food. It's one of the top most allergic foods you can eat.
Soy milk will kill a baby. Okay? I've given lecture after lecture after lecture. People do not thrive on soy milk. It is bean juice. It is worthless for a human being. it is fine for a pig.
The third negative thing that I don't like about soy is the fact that it contains high levels of phytoestrogens.
Soy has a very, very high estrogen content, and most people don't realize that. It tends to be a relationship between cancer of the breast and probably other cancers, and the excess estrogen that women are getting in their food.
If a baby is fed solely on soy infant formula, it's like giving that baby 5 birth control pills a day, the amount of estrogens. You get 13,000 to 22,000 times more estrogen circulating in a baby's body than if they were taking milk formula. And that can lead to conditions later in life, such as this growing problem of early puberty, where we have 1 out of 6 8-year-olds going into puberty, feeding children, little girls and little boys who also have reproductive abnormalities from doing the soy infant formula.
Babies are at the highest risk because soy formula is all they're eating. Little babies, vulnerable, key stages of their developing brains and bodies, and all they're getting is the soy formula.
Soy infant formula. There is no reason this product should exist in the marketplace. It should be banned and commercially removed. Infants fed soy formula, this has been shown clearly time and again, have up to 20,000 times the amount of estrogen circulating in their bloodstream than infants that are not fed soy formula. But soy formula is also loaded with dangerous toxins. It has excessive toxic levels of manganese and aluminum, and it's beyond my understanding why this product is even allowed on the market.
When adults start eating a lot of soy or drinking a lot of soy milk, we most often see thyroid problems. And that most often manifests as hypothyroidism with those symptoms of weight gain, lethargy, malaise, and loss of libido. That's a big one.
4 tablespoons a day, which is a glass of soy milk, is enough soy to actually have an effect on your thyroid.
Sometimes I've actually used soy because one of the biggest things that happens with soy is it has a very high anti-thyroid thyroid effect.
Okay.
So I've used it when actually a person comes in with hyperthyroidism because it downregulates the thyroid so quickly that just by giving a couple glasses of soy milk over a couple days, their symptoms start to dissipate.
On another hand, though, any type of fermented soy is going to be okay for you to eat.
Fermented forms of soy, which include tempeh,
Miso,
And another form called natto.
are probably okay and may actually be a very healthy food.
Soy came from Asia. It was never considered a very nutritional food. It was only when they learned to ferment it that they were able to make it digestible. Up until that point, it was only used in times of famine when they had nothing else. They would never eat the soybean.
But you know, the American Heart Association last year came out and said, we made a mistake. Soy is not a health food. It does not prevent heart disease. It does not lower cholesterol. What we've got happening right now is the Israeli Health Ministry has come out and warned against soy. They've said babies should not get soy formula, that children up to age 18 should eat it no more than 3 times a week and no more than once a day, and that adults should be cautious because of adverse effects on fertility and increased breast cancer risk. And the French Food Agency will soon require warning labels on soy foods. So that's happening, and some foreign governments are starting to look at this and say there are some risks with soy.
And by the way, the Japanese have worse heart disease numbers and worse cancer numbers than Americans. A colleague in Japan said, Brian, you're going to flip when you see the numbers, so take the fish and take the soy and cram it. They are sicker than we are. And I pulled this off the website of their health ministry right there. No physician I've ever told this to knew it. Their mouths dropped when you start talking about, quote, how healthy the Asians are. No, they're not. They're not at all. So this proves exactly that fish and soy are not the answers to anything.
You're hurting yourself or you're healing yourself. It's your choice. See you next time.